Good morning, everyone. I'd like to first thank you all for being here with us today. And I'd like to introduce Reverend John Swanson for the invocation.
Thank you, Christine. In the waning days of World War II, the battleship Washington was escorting the carrier Enterprise. And the Enterprise was securing from what had been a very easy attack on the Japanese island. It was very surprising that the captain of the Washington did not leave the bridge after the Enterprise had secured. Even more surprising when he sent for a messenger. And talking with the messenger, he gave him a piece of paper. Called for another messenger, gave him a pair of binoculars. He said, I want you, son, to watch the Enterprise, and I want you to count the planes as they return. I'm going to do likewise. Messenger, you record the numbers we give you. That was very surprising for the crew. The captain on the bridge, a routine operation, planes landing. The Enterprise had launched 47 planes. And the captain and the messenger, they counted. Over 2 hours. 1, 2, went on and on and on. Finally, the flag went up and the Enterprise planes had been secured. Ships secured from stations. Washington took up her position as escort. And the captain said to the messenger, what's your number, son? And the messenger said, 46, sir. Very good, son. You missed lunch. Get down to my day cabin. My steward will take care of you. He sat in his chair. And he stared at the Enterprise. Messenger arrived on the bridge. Kid's face was ashen, was totally white. With a shaking hand, he gave the message to the officer of the deck. The officer of the deck read the message, turned to the captain, and the captain stood up from his chair and said, Mr. Barnes, I shall be in my cabin. He left the bridge. Bridge watch was amazed. What's going on? And then the executive officer said that was a message from Admiral Halsey. The captain's son did not return from this run. Memorial Day. Veterans Day, we celebrate, we honor all those with the honor of wearing the uniform for the country. Today is the day where we honor those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. Friends, it is not a cliche, it is true. Freedom is not free, and let us ever remember that. Let's pray together. Father, bless these proceedings today. Thank you, Lord God, for that legion upon legion of people who have given the ultimate sacrifice for our flag. Bless our nation. Keep us one nation under God. And bless, preserve, and protect us. Respecting all faiths, I pray in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Officer of the day will be raising the flag.
Unit commanders, bring your units to present arms.
Please remain standing as we recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, please be seated. I'd like to ask our Quincy, North Quincy students to please come forward. They'll be singing the national anthem, America the Beautiful, and My Country 'Tis of Thee.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of gray, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife, who north and south their country loved, and mercy more than life. America, America, God mend thine every flaw, confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in law. Oh, beautiful for patriot dream that sees beyond the years, thine alabaster cities gleam undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the Pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. Let music swell the breeze and ring from all the trees sweet freedom song. Let mortal tongues
Unit commanders, bring your units to parade rest.
Thank you all for gathering here today as we honor the true meaning of Memorial Day, a day set aside not just for the unofficial start of summer, but to remember the brave men and women who laid down their lives in service to our country. In communities like ours, the patriotism runs deep and the love of country is part of our everyday life. Memorial Day carries a solemn and profound weight. We do not take for granted the freedoms we enjoy because we know the cost at which they were bought. We stand today united by gratitude, by respect, and by remembrance. We honor our fallen heroes, not only in words, but in how we live, how we serve, and how we remember. Let us take this time to reflect on their courage, their sacrifice, and the ideals for which they gave everything: liberty, justice, and a future for the generations to come. As we begin this ceremony, let us keep close in our hearts the families who still bear the weight of the loss. And let us strive to be worthy of the sacrifices made on our behalf. May God bless our fallen. I'd like to please welcome up Veteran Council Chaplain Dawn Knight to read In Flanders Field.
Thank you, Christine. In Flanders Field was written by John McCrae during World War I in Belgium. John McCrae was a Canadian physician during World War I, and this is his poem. In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, shot days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith, which us to die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
Next, I'd like to introduce Commander of the Quincy Veteran Council, Heikki Pakala.
Thank you, Christine. Gold Star families and honored guests. We celebrate this Memorial Day with a focus on honoring those who have died serving our country. One way we can honor our soldiers is to reflect on the traits that made them heroes we memorialize today. A soldier is someone who completes extensive training to be both physically and mentally disciplined. They learn how to apply their skill sets to navigate difficult situations and to be ready for any adversities. Soldiers acquire, through their commitments, a deep sense of responsibility and respect for their leaders and their peers. Equally important, soldiers learn how to be part of a team that supports camaraderie, to be there for one another. So let us memorialize our fallen soldiers, our courageous heroes, by embracing some of these traits in our day-to-day lives, so we too can be of service to our great country. Thank you, and God bless America.
Next, I'd like to ask Mike Norton to please come forward, and he'll be reading the proclamation.
A proclamation. Whereas, while the nation was still recovering from the Civil War, people in cities and towns across the country gathered to honor the soldiers who had given their lives, celebrating the first Declaration Day. And whereas after World War I, the nation came together again to honor those who had fallen in the service of their country, renamed Memorial Day, the last Monday in May is when people remember and honor the memory of all the men and women who fought and died in all American wars and conflicts. And whereas throughout our country's history, thousands of Massachusetts residents have fought in wars and conflicts to defend our safety and way of life. And whereas their legacy of patriotism and dedication to country is an inspiration to all Americans. And whereas it is appropriate that all Massachusetts residents remember the bravery of those who gave their lives so that their sacrifices serve as a reminder of the cost of our freedom. Now, therefore, I, Maura T. Healey, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim May 26, 2025 to be Memorial Day, and urge all residents of the Commonwealth to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. Given at the Executive Chamber in Boston this 26th day of May in the year 2025, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 248th, by Her Excellency Maura T. Healey.
It is a great honor to introduce to you Mayor Thomas P. Koch.
Thank you, Christine, Reverend Swanson, Gold Star families Durkin and Caldwell, distinguished veterans, my colleagues in government, and the people of the great city of Quincy. It's an honor and privilege to bring the greetings of our city here today at this solemn event at this beautiful location. We're celebrating our 400th anniversary this year as a settlement. Mount Wollaston Cemetery was named for our settlement, Mount Wollaston. And over the last few years, we've been preparing for this year, and you can see the improvements and the embellishments here at Mount Wollaston. You certainly can take a peek up at Pine Hill as well to honor those that have gone before us, and particularly those that gave it their all. You may not be aware, but if you look behind me, there's a line of monuments. Go from the Civil War to the one we just dedicated this past fall to the War on Terror. There are names in those monuments. They're not just names. Those are people that lived here, went to school here, and offered and went on to serve their nation and did not come home. As we are here today, cities and towns across the country are doing similar programs, across the world for that matter, as we have men and women buried in cemeteries across the world that gave it their all. Quincy is a special place. One of the reasons it's so special is because the veterans, every generation stepped up to defend the flag we see behind us. May we continue to earn that. Remember the stories. I'm looking forward to the remarks today of Distinguished Honorable Justice Jeffrey Clifford, a Marine twice, who served his nation, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. So to all our veterans out there, we say thank you. To all the veterans who are serving currently, whatever your faith tradition is, when you put that head on your pillow tonight, say a prayer for them, that they may return home safely. God bless.
Thank you, Mayor Koch. Next, I'd like to introduce Council President Ian Kane.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you'd first indulge me in recognizing our elected officials that have joined us here today. District Attorney Michael Morrissey, State Senator John Keenan, State Representative Taki Chan, State Representative Bruce Ayers, Ward 1 City Councilor Dave McCarthy, Ward 4 City Councilor Jim Devine, Ward 5 City Councilor Dan Minton, Ward 6 City Councilor Bill Harris, Councilors at Large Scott Campbell and Noel DeBona, and school committee members Tina Cahill, Doug Gutrow, Courtney Perdios, and Catherine Hubley. Now, as we gather once again in this city rich with history and patriotism, our hearts are filled with a familiar mix of sorrow and gratitude. Memorial Day asks much of us. It asks us to look back with reverence, to grieve those lost in the service of our country, and to honor the legacy they left behind. It's difficult when you think about it, that we even need a day like this. Memorial Day exists because of war, because of violence, because of death. It marks the absence of thousands who would still be with us today, sons, daughters, mothers, fathers, and dear friends. That's a hard truth. But it's also a day of deep purpose. Because while we mourn, we also celebrate. We celebrate lives of extraordinary courage. We honor the men and women who stood in harm's way so that the rest of us could live in relative peace, free from aggression, free to pursue our lives and dreams without fear. We recognize the families who carry those sacrifices with quiet dignity every single day. Quincy understands sacrifice. From the revolution to this present day, this community has answered the call to defend liberty, not just with words, but with action. And today, we continue that tradition, not by marching into battle, but by showing up, by remembering, and by rededicating ourselves to the principles for which they served: freedom, democracy, and justice. So let us honor them, not just in this ceremony, but in how we live. Let their sacrifice inspire us to be better stewards of peace, more grateful citizens, and more courageous in our own ways. May we work toward a world where such sacrifices are no longer necessary, but never forgotten.
Thank you, Councilor Kane. It is my honor to introduce Judge Jeffrey Clifford. Judge Clifford was raised in Quincy. On his 18th birthday, he enlisted in the United States Marine Corps and served as a Marine infantryman in Operation Desert Storm. He participated in Task Force Troy, Task Force Ripper as a mortarman. He obtained a Bachelor's of Arts degree from the University of Massachusetts. He then obtained a Juris Doctorate from the Catholic University School of Law in Washington, D.C. After law school, he worked as an assistant district attorney in Norfolk County. He was assigned to the Quincy District Court. In October of 2005, he learned that the 1st Battalion, 25th Marines, a Marine Reserve unit out of Fort Devens, was about to be activated and go to Iraq. Motivated by 9/11 terrorist attack, at the age of 35, he enlisted in the Marine Reserves. He was activated in December of 2005, and in March 2006, he was deployed to Fallujah, Iraq. Judge Clifford was a vehicle commander of the lead vehicle in a mobile assault platoon. He was responsible for navigating his platoon of 8 Humvees mounted with heavy machine guns, 31 Marines, and 2 Navy corpsmen. This included engaging insurgents, spotting improvised explosive devices, and potential ambushes. He was decorated for valor with a Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal with a combat distinguishing device. He was awarded this medal for capturing 3 armed insurgents in Fallujah, Iraq. Upon completion of his tour, Judge Clifford established his own law practice in his hometown of Quincy, Massachusetts. He was a member of the Federal Criminal Justice Act panel. Furthermore, he was a member of the Norfolk County Bar Advocates Board for 7 years and was president of the Norfolk County Bar Advocates Board for 2 years. Additionally, Judge Clifford spent 3 years on the Board of Trustees at the Chelsea Soldiers Home and is a recipient of the Quincy Bar Association Man of the Year in 2017. In 2019, Governor Charlie Baker appointed him as District Court Judge. He is a member of the Judicial Criminal Proceedings Committee and presides over the Norfolk County Veterans Court program. He currently sits in the Brockton District Court. Please join me in welcoming Judge Jeffrey Clifford.
Thank you for those kind words, and thank you, Mayor, for inviting me to speak here today on this very somber occasion of Memorial Day. The first values I learned, the core values that I carry with me here today, I learned in this city. My first and fondest memory was marching in the Flag Day Parade with my Coke Club uniform, carrying an American flag with my teammates. And I saw many examples of patriotism and love of God and country in this very city. And they influenced me, and I've carried them with me my entire life. Some of the examples include the mayors in this city. Mayor McIntyre, who was a Marine who served in the Korean War and was decorated for valor with a Bronze Star with combat distinguishing device. Mayor Arthur Tobin, who was another example, who served in the Marine Corps during the Korean War. And Mayor Thomas Koch, whose son served honorably in the United States Marine Corps. And quite frankly, I think having your son or daughter go off and serve this country is an even tougher sacrifice than going yourself. So I thank all of them for their example, among the many that I saw here in Quincy that inspired me to serve when I came of age. Today, I'd also like to point out the Gold Star families, some of whom are here today and who have given the ultimate sacrifice through the loss of their loved ones. I want you all to know that you are in my prayers every day. Today, I'd like to tell you a story about 3 of my friends, Eric Valdepenas, Jared Shoemaker, and Christopher Walsh. They were in my mobile assault platoon in Fallujah, Iraq. Eric Valdepenas was a college student from Seekonk, Massachusetts, who was pre-med and was planning to go to medical school and follow in the footsteps of his father. Jared Shoemaker was a police officer from Tulsa, Oklahoma, who loved being a police officer and who talked about it all the time. Eric was my gunner for the first 2 months of the tour, as they rotated the gunners out of the lead vehicle because they engaged the enemy more frequently to give them a break. Jared was my running partner. We ran together at Camp Bahariya when we were there refitting our vehicles. We were about the same speed, so we used to compete and run against each other. And then Doc Christopher Walsh, who was from St. Louis, Missouri. He was a paramedic in St. Louis, and he was one of our Navy corpsmen. In a Marine platoon, a mobile assault platoon, there are 2 corpsmen that are our medics, that are Navy men, and he was one of those 2. And his abilities as a paramedic in St. Louis, Missouri, which is a very urban area with a lot of trauma, was absolutely invaluable. He was also 35, like me, on the older side for being in an infantry platoon. So we were friends We shared a lot of stories together. And we were also roommates at Camp Bahariya, which was the main camp that we operated out of when we were patrolling through the streets of Fallujah. As you heard, I was in a mobile assault platoon. There were 4 up-armored Hum vehicles in my section. I was the section leader of the lead section. And then there were another 4 in second section. I would lead them all when we were together on the main streets. And when we went into the side streets, I would lead first section and second section would be separate, and they would meander through other streets so that we could cover more ground. Each of these mobile assault platoon vehicles, which were up-armored Humvees, had a gunner that was in the turret with the heavy machine gun. They had a driver of the vehicle, the Humvee, and they had a vehicle commander, and then they had 2 Marines in the back who would dismount with the vehicle commander when we engaged vehicles or people out in the streets through gunfights or through regular interactions. In my particular vehicle, because I was the lead vehicle, I also had the interpreter sitting in one of the 2 seats in the rear where one of the Marines would be. And he assisted me in interrogating and questioning any of the prisoners that we took or any of the people that we had to interact with in the community. Fallujah, where we operated, was a city of approximately the same population as Quincy, that was between Syria and Baghdad, and was a common route for foreign fighters into Iraq. And it was also a place where many of the locals had served under Saddam Hussein in the military. So it was a hostile place with a lot of activity. And these men, these Marines and sailors that I served with, patrolled the city looking for anyone that was attacking coalition forces, responding to any radio calls, and hitting high-value targets at night. On one patrol, we were in the southwest quadrant of Fallujah, and while patrolling, I was leading first section, and second section was being led by the second section commander. And as he was leading, we heard an explosion. And we knew that it was in the general area of where second section was, so we responded to that explosion. And not in a direct line, because that's where the next improvised explosive device, which is what had just exploded, would occur. We went to where second section was, and when I got there with my section, I saw that one of the vehicles was damaged. It had 2 flat tires, it had damage on the right side. 2 of the Marines were suffering from concussions. But I also observed a man with a white dish dasher, which is a white robe, run into the courtyard in that area of where there were 2 houses. So I dismounted with my Marines, and we entered the courtyard and fanned out looking for this man. Now, the reason we were looking for him is he had fled the area and was most likely the trigger man that had set off the improvised explosive device that had hit one of the vehicles in second section. So I went into the courtyard with my interpreter and my Gib guy in the back. And when we got there, there was a man working on some bricks. So I said to the man, "How long have you been working on those bricks?" through the interpreter. And he said, "About 2 hours." I said, "Where did the man with the white dish dasher go?" He said, "I didn't see anyone run through here." So it was clear to me that he wasn't being truthful. So I continued my interrogation. The other Marines continued looking for the trigger man. To no avail, we didn't find him. But afterwards, what we would do if we interrogated any of the locals is we'd do a brush-off plan. We'd try to end on a good note. So I asked him, "Is there anything I can do for you? Is there any way we can help you or your family?" And he pointed toward one of the 2 buildings in his courtyard that we had already cleared. And I saw what I later learned to be his wife signaling us into the building. So I went into the building with one of our corpsmen and with my Gib, Leonardo Jorge, and there was a baby in a bassinet, crying, feverish. You could tell that the baby was in distress. And this was the poorer part of Fallujah, so the building was not ideal for a healthy baby, let alone a sick child. The child was 18 months old and her name was Miriam. We asked the mother what was wrong with the child through the interpreter, and the mother said that the child was sick, lifted up the child's robe, and the child's bladder was completely exposed on her body. So at that, we took photographs of the child's bladder. We continued our patrol. We brought our damaged vehicle back to Camp Bahariya. And then our 2 corpsmen spoke to the battalion surgeon. and asked him what was wrong with the child, showed him the photos that we had taken of the child. And the battalion surgeon said that the child had an ectopic bladder and that it was a birth defect that would ultimately kill the child. The child would suffer from infection upon infection until the child ultimately succumbed, weakened, and died. And that the only way that we could help the child is getting the child back to the States for surgery. The facilities in Iraq were not capable of that type of surgery at that time. So our corpsman asked our command for permission to go on missions to save this child. And the command agreed, but said, those are extra missions in addition to the assigned missions you already have. So our corpsman brought this proposal to our platoon and asked the Marines in the platoon if they would agree to go on extra missions to help save this child, to keep this child stable with antibiotics and treatment until we could get the child back to the United States for surgery. And every single Marine in that platoon, without hesitation, agreed to go on extra missions when they could be safe, when they could be avoiding getting shot by snipers or improvised explosive devices, extra missions when they could be calling home, extra missions where they could be resting. They went on those missions to help save this little girl. And we did those missions for about 2 months. And the missions had to be clandestine because we couldn't announce that we were there because the locals or the foreign fighters, and there were many foreign fighters from Chechnya and Syria and Egypt and Saudi Arabia that we were fighting there as well, they would retaliate against the family if they knew that we were helping them. Also, we couldn't quite trust Miriam's father because he had lied to us about an IED trigger man. So we would go at night, unannounced, treat the baby either at Miriam's house or at her grandparents' house, and then we would sneak back off and do our missions. So we did this for 2 months. And on one particular patrol, again in the southwest quadrant of Fallujah, and this was a combat patrol, we were rolling just south of Fran, which is the main east-west road that goes through Fallujah. And I was leading first section, and second section leader was leading second section, and we were separated as we were meandering through the streets to cover more territory. And we heard a loud explosion, this time louder than before. Your average Marine platoon at the time that went through Fallujah on a tour would be struck by approximately 12 to 18 improvised explosive devices. So it wasn't unusual, but this one certainly was. It was louder than typical. It was more violent than typical. So when I heard the explosion, I immediately brought my section over to where second section was. I set up a cordon around the vehicle that I observed that had been impacted, and I dismounted with my gib to render assistance. And as I approached the vehicle, I saw a helmet on the ground, which was not a good sign. I saw black, acrid smoke billowing from the vehicle, flames emanating from the vehicle. The flames were so hot that they were cooking the rounds off in the vehicle from the machine gun. They were popping out in every direction. So we ran up to the vehicle, and when we got there, Cody Hill, who was the driver in that vehicle and was a professional rodeo rider back in Oklahoma, was on fire. So we put him out. We brought him over to Whiskey 4, which was one of the other mobile assault platoons, so that their corpsman could render aid and we could turn toward our other friends that were in the vehicle. And unfortunately, there was nothing we could do for Eric Valdepenas, Jared Shoemaker, or Doc Walsh. They were gone. So we continued to look for a trigger man that was responsible for this IED. We gathered up our friends, we gathered up our vehicle and all its parts so that the enemy would have no trophies and nothing that they could air on CNN. And we went back to Camp Baharia to check on Cody Hill. And what we learned is that he had been burnt over 80% of his body, third-degree burns, but that he had been stabilized. He was ultimately flown to Germany and then to Texas, where he spent over a year recovering. He's alive today, but he has significant disabilities as a result of what happened, and he's no longer a professional rodeo rider. So after we checked on Cody Hill, we all met as a platoon, and we planned payback for the Mujahideen that had killed our brothers. But we also talked about baby Miriam. And we all agreed to a man to continue to go on patrols to help that child and to get that child hopefully back to the States for life-saving surgery. And a couple of weeks later, with the help of our battalion chaplain, our battalion commander, and the battalion surgeon, we received approval for the child to get life-saving surgery at Mass General Hospital. And the child received that surgery and is alive today. When she was receiving that surgery, it took 10 hours for the specialist from Mass General to complete the surgery. And it was a significant surgery and not a typical surgery. And he ultimately was on television and he was interviewed about the surgery and about what occurred after the surgery. And what he said was that Maureen Walsh, Doc Christopher Walsh's mother, was able to come see the baby when the baby was recovering from surgery. And that Maureen Walsh was given the baby to hold. And that he expected that she would hold the baby for 10 minutes. And she held the baby for hours. And while she was holding the baby, Miriam's grandparents, who were brought back with her as guardians, said that they don't believe in coincidences. That they think that Doc Walsh, Jared Shoemaker, and Eric Valdepenas were put there for a reason. Now think about that. The symbolism is quite profound. Miriam. Miriam is a Hebrew Aramaic name in the middle of Iraq. The first Bibles were translated into Greek, and Miriam became Mary. Now their actions, their example, reminds me of a quote from the Bible, Matthew 25:35 through 40, where Jesus said, "You gave me food when I was hungry. You gave me drink when I was thirsty. You cared for me when I was sick." And the righteous responded to Jesus, "When did we feed you when you were hungry? When did we give you drink when you were thirsty? When did we care for you when you were sick?" And Jesus responded, "What you did for the least of mine, my brothers, you did for me." Their actions exemplified this message of compassion. They, Eric, Jared, and Christopher, are your fallen heroes. Just one example of the many men and women who traded all of their tomorrows for our way of life, our liberty, the safety of our loved ones, and even the daughter of an enemy. In many countries around the world, the strongest, the fittest, those most capable in weapons of war, use those skills to advance themselves or their regime. In this country, your soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, they use those skills and abilities to protect our way of life and to protect our loved ones. America is the light. We are the bastion of liberty and hope for the world because of the sacrifices of our brave men and women. Not a day goes by where I don't think about Jared, Eric, and Christopher, my fallen friends. Remember them, and remember all our brave warriors that sacrificed their lives representing our American ideals and making sure that we can sleep safely in our beds at night. Semper Fidelis.
I'd like to ask past Commander Dan Tinney to come up to read Logan's order.
Memorial Day, Headquarters, Grand Army of the Republic, Washington, D.C., May 5th, 1868. General Orders number 11. 1. The 30th day of May, 1868 is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion, and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet churchyard in the land. In this observance, no form or ceremony is prescribed, but posts and comrades will in their own way arrange such fitting services and testimonials of respect as circumstances may permit. We are organized, comrades, as our regulations tell us, for the purpose, among other things, of preserving and strengthening those kind and fraternal feelings which have bound together the soldiers, sailors, and Marines who united to suppress the late rebellion. What can aid more to assure this result than by cherishing tenderly the memory of our heroic dead who made their breast a barricade between our country and its foes? Their soldier lives were the reveille of freedom to a race in chains, and their deaths the tattoo of rebellious tyranny in arms. We should guard their graves with sacred vigilance. All that the consecrated wealth and taste of the nation can add to their adornment and security is but a fitting tribute to the memory of her slain defenders. Let no wanton foot tread rudely on such hallowed grounds. Let pleasant paths invite the coming and going of reverent visitors and fond mourners. Let no vandalism of avarice or neglect, no ravages of time, testify to the present or to the coming generations that we have forgotten as a people the cost of a free and undivided republic. If other eyes grow dull and other hands slack, and other hearts cold in the solemn trust, ours shall keep it well as long as the light and warmth of life remains in us. Let us then, at the time appointed, gather around their sacred remains and garland the passionless mounds above them with choicest flowers of springtime. Let us raise above them the dear old flag that they saved from dishonor. Let us in this solemn presence renew our pledges to aid and assist those whom they have left among us as sacred charges upon the nation's gratitude, the soldiers and sailors, widow and orphan. 2. It is the purpose of the Commander-in-Chief to inaugurate this observance with the hope that it will be kept up from year to year while a survivor of the war remains to honor the memory of his departed comrades. He earnestly desires the public press to call attention to this order and lend its friendly aid in bringing it to the notice of comrades in all parts of the country in time for simultaneous compliance therewith. 3. Department commanders will use every effort to make this order effective by command of John A. Logan, Commander-in-Chief, N.P. Chipman, Adjutant General. Thank you.
Officer of the day.
Unit Commander, bring your unit to attention.
Commander Pakala, Gold Star families, please come forward. They'll be placing the ceremonial wreaths. Please remain standing if you can while we read the deceased members from the Quincy Veterans Organizations.
Francis Bellotti,
Absent.
Paul Kelly,
Absent.
Robert McCallum,
Absent.
Paul McDonough,
Absent.
Joseph McConville,
Absent.
Paul McDonough,
Absent.
Edward Ryan,
Absent.
James Procaccini,
Absent.
John Quinn,
Absent.
William Trefoni,
Absent.
David Wellman,
Absent. Unit commanders, bring your units to present arms.
Please sound taps.
Unit commanders, bring your units to parade rest.
I'd like to ask Reverend Swanson to please come forward for the benediction.
When I was a Navy chaplain, I was told that Marines love three types of people: corpsmen, chaplains, and Coast Guardsmen. Semper Fidelis, always faithful, mantra of the Marines. Semper Paratus, always ready, mantra of the Coast Guard. May we ever be ready to honor the faithful and to take from them the torch passed to us to preserve, protect, and defend our Constitution and our great land. May God bless you all. May God bless the United States. Amen.
Thank you all for being here, part of this remembrance. May we leave here today with a renewed commitment to honor the fallen, not just with ceremonies, but with action, compassion, and unity in our daily lives. May God bless our fallen, their families, and may God bless the United States. Thank you all so much for coming out today.
Unit commanders, dismiss your units.